Hi boys and girls, it's your art teacher, Mrs. Steffgen. I'm here to work with you today to teach you something kind of interesting. It's called 1-point perspective. And I am going to teach you how to make a city that goes back in space to 1 point. And this is an example of one that I made. I did this one with colored pencils, but you can color it with whatever you have to work with at home. But today, in order to do our project, you're going to have a pencil, a piece of paper, and hopefully a ruler. If you don't have a ruler, then you're just going to have to try to have a really steady hand to make your lines. So here I am starting off with my piece of paper and my ruler. If you don't have a ruler, you probably can use the edge of a book, which is going to be straight edge too. And I'm going to take my ruler and I am going to make on this paper with my pencil a ground line. Or what we call a horizon line. And we have talked about a ground line before many times over the years. You're now in 3rd or 4th grade and you have heard me talking about ground lines many times before. So I'm going to create a ground line and I'm going to make my ground line so it's pretty far up on my paper, not too close to the top, but not too close to the bottom, kind of in the middle, but a little bit closer to the top than in the middle. And I'm going to even it out and then push on my ruler and take my pencil and make my ground line about right here. You already know that a ground line is what divides the sky, which is at the top, from the ground, which is at the bottom. Then along the bottom of the paper, you're going to make a variety of different rectangles. And the rectangles are going to be your buildings. So I am going to use a ruler to make my rectangles, but on this one that I made to show to you, I didn't use a ruler. I just drew out rectangles, but I kind of wanted the top to be really straight. So I went back and I straightened out the tops of my buildings with using the ruler. But originally I made the buildings out of rectangles just by hand. So I'm going to make a rectangle here just by hand, about like that, going from the edge of the paper to the edge of the paper here. And then I'm going to make a different sized one. And this time I'm going to use my ruler. So I'm going to make a straight line across for the top and then a straight line down for the side. You'll probably notice that this one's a little bit straighter than the one I made originally, but you can do it either way. Then I'm going to add another rectangle and I'm going to use the same line because they're all going to be connected. And you know connected means that they touch each other. And I'm going to make another rectangle, and this time I'm going to make this one a little bit taller building and a little bit thinner. And then I'm going to make another building, and I'm going to make this one shorter even than the second one there. I'm going to make it shorter and longer. And then the last one is only going to be part of a building showing. There are my rectangle buildings. Now I have to make a point that I direct all my lines to in the center of my ground line. So right here in the center of my ground line, I'm going to make an X. All my lines are going to go back to that X. Notice that I not only made a buildings on here, but I also made a street, and the street goes back to that point too. So I'm going to start from this building, and from the corner of each one of my buildings, I want to make a line that goes back to the ground line. So here I go. I'm going to go like this from the edge here and go back to the ground line and go back to the point on the ground line like that. And from this one, I'm going to go back to the ground line, to the point of the ground line. So I have to put my ruler in a place where it actually matches the ground line and matches the corner. And then I'm going to take this building and go from this corner and do the same thing. And from this one, the same thing. But it hits a building in between, so I have to stop when I come to the building. And then from this one, I want to go back from the corners. And then from this one, same thing. This one's not going to show because it's going to go through the building. This one will, though. and from this corner. And even though I don't see the corner on this one, I'm going to estimate it's about where that line is. Then I have all my buildings going back to that one point, okay? So now I have to just make the tops of the buildings, and the tops of the buildings are going to be horizontal, same as the ground line. So I'm going to go back to this building and go up a little bit further and make the top of my building here. There's the top of my building there. And the side of the building is going to come down from that point straight, just like the side of the building does. So from here, I'm going to make a little line that goes down and stops, because that is going to be my building here. And then I'm going to make the line go across here from the end of that one. And that's the top of this building. Here's the top of this building. Here's the top of this building. Here's the side of this first building. And then from here, I want to make another straight line across. And that's the top of this building. And from here, I want to make another line across. And that's the top of this building. And from this building, I want to make a line across that goes like this. And then from the end here, I'm going to come straight down to make the side of the building, because the side of the building shows on this one and on this one. But on these, only the tops of the building show. And then I can go back and take my eraser and erase all the lines that I used to make the perspective. Because I already have the top of my building there, so I can erase these lines. Now those are gone. Now I can erase these lines. Now those are gone, and now I can erase these lines. Now I have all my buildings going back to this point in perspective, this point on my ground line, okay? Then I'm going to go back and add all my details. I can add a sky. You can add any kind of sky you want to. On your ground line, you can add mountains. So we have mountains here in Tucson, so I usually like to add mountains to my landscapes. I'm going to put mountains on top of my ground line. Okay. If I want to make a road behind my buildings, the road has to actually go back to that point too. So I can make the road as thick or as thin as I want. So I'm going to make a line from my point here, my ground line, to the building, because I can't go through the building because the building is an actual object. And make another line here. And now I have a road behind the buildings that goes back. And if I put little lines on my road, the lines in the front at the bottom are going to be bigger and further apart. And then as I go up the road, they're going to get closer together and smaller, because they look like they go farther away into the distance. Okay? And then I can begin to add my windows, my doors. And when I go to color it, I want to make sure I color the top lighter than the front, because the sun is coming from the top and we'll put light on the top. And then the sides, it's darker than the top, but not as dark as the front. So it's like 3 different colors if you see the side of the building. Okay? And that's how you go about coloring it. So try it. Try to use a ruler if you can. If you don't have a ruler, go ahead and use a book to make all your straight lines. And see if you can make a 1-point perspective project like we just did. Bye, guys.